Test. Okay, I want to welcome everybody to this YouTube stream where I'm going to show you, as a teacher, how to use Google Apps and an add-on for Google Apps called Flubaroo to create a self-grading test. And so my name is Ben Parker. I'm the Director of Technology at the Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. And so I just want to take a few minutes to walk you through this. Now, I made a tutorial that I posted on YouTube not too long ago that shows how to do this. But since I've posted that, Google has changed the way that they do Google Forms. They've changed the interface and just how it looks. And so I want to do this again so that you can see how to do it, because if you went now, you might be lost looking at the interface. So I want to walk you through the new Google Forms real quick. And so to get started, you need to be in Google Drive. And so if you don't know how to get there, it's drive.google.com. Or when you're logged into Google and Chrome or any other browser, and you go over here to this navigator up here in the top right hand corner, these 9 little squares, and it shows all these different icons. I can choose Drive right there, and I can navigate to my Google Drive. Now I've already navigated to a folder in Google Drive, and so it's in a Flubaroo folder. You can see that there. So now I'm going to go ahead and create a new Google form in order to do this. Now, if I want to create a new Google form, I need to go up here to the New button, and it gives me a bunch of options. I can create a new folder. I can upload a folder or a file. I have Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides. And then if I hit More, you can see here now I get the option to select Google Forms. So I'm going to select Google Forms right now. It's going to ask me if I want to create it in a shared folder, because this is a folder that I'm sharing with other people. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And so now you can see it opens up a new form, and it automatically starts as untitled form. I'm going to call this OPSRC, just where I work, the Oklahoma Public School Resource Center, Flubaroo test. And so I can come down here and give it a description. I'm going to call it My Awesome Test. And then I can actually click up here and rename it, but since I named it here, if I click up, you see it automatically pulled the name there. So this is the format. This is what it looks like in Google Forms. They've changed them a little bit from what it used to be. And so I want to start by going over some options up here. So first of all, you may say, hey, I don't want a purple background on my test. Right up here at the top, there is a color palette picker, so I can click on that, and I can pick a different color. Pick blue or whatever you want. I can even select the image option down here, and they have different themes, work and school, sports and games, travel, and you can flip through some of these and see that there are some pretty cool pictures that you can choose from. And so if I chose one of these, so I'll pick this one right here, hit select. You'll notice it puts the image across the top, and then the color changes according to the image. It actually pulls the color from the image. So I'm actually going to go back and just select a blue, except not that blue. I'm going to go with this blue. Okay, so now I have a blue background. I've changed the way that my form looks. I can also preview the form and see what it's going to look like. But up here in the top right-hand corner, I have settings. So I can click on that. Now, when you click on settings, it brings up a nice little dialog box here. And so it's saying who can respond to this form. So it should say anyone in, and then whatever your organization or school is. So anyone in Locust Grove Public Schools can respond to this test. And what that means is a user is going to have to be logged into Google through their domain account in order to access that test. I typically turn this off. I want anyone to be able to fill out the form. That means they don't have to be logged in if I'm giving this in a lab, a test in a lab, or if I'm passing out laptops that aren't Chromebooks and people are just picking one up, going to the address. They don't have to be logged in to get to it. Kind of makes life easier. I have other options, can only submit one response. Once again, it tells you that's going to require a login. You get a confirmation page, so after they hit submit on your test, after they submit it, it's going to bring them to a page. You can put a message here, like, please turn to page 43 in your book and read the next chapter. You could give instructions here, whatever you want, or you can just say, hey, thanks for taking my test, whatever you want. And then you have some options down below here. I can show respondents a link to submit another response. They can edit their response. They can see a summary of responses. I'm actually just going to unclick all of these. I don't want to do any of that. And then down at the very bottom, you'll notice that they have this option where I can shuffle the question order. So I can actually shuffle the order that the questions appear, in which the questions appear. You can check that. I'm going to leave that unchecked because the new Google Forms has a really cool option that I want to show you about where I can shuffle the answers. And so I'm just going to hit save to save everything I said there. All right. And so now I've got that. And so now I need to put in questions. Typically what I would do is I would take say the dreaded term worksheet or any sort of multiple choice test that you might have or be giving, and then instead of using it paper, I can put in the question, put in the options. It's important to note that with Flubaroo, and if you want to really make it a self-grading test, you need to either use multiple choice questions or they need to be short answer questions. So what's the capital of Oklahoma? The answer is Oklahoma City. There's one way to spell it, one way to type it. Really easy to match that up. And then I can have multiple choice. If I am doing longer essay questions, kids are never going to guess the answer that you provide word for word because you have to provide a key for the test. And so that's never going to work. So you can have essay questions on there and have it skip grading, and you can manually enter a grade if you want. And maybe I'll tackle how to do that in another session. But for now, we're going to stick with just multiple choice questions. But so I'm going to start with I'm just going to use 3 questions for my quiz, or else this video would just be really long. And I'm not even going to use real questions here. So I'm going to do what I normally do when I provide training for schools. I'm going to ask, what's the best place to eat in Oklahoma City? And if you've never been to Oklahoma or Oklahoma City, then maybe you don't care, but I'm just going to throw out some options of places that I like. I'm going to throw in Waffle Champion, which is a really cool place to eat here. Ted's, one of my favorites. I like Mickey Mantle's. Oops, if I could type. And then I need one more option. Let's just say Hideaway Pizza, which is... People are watching this going, there are much better places to eat. I'm sure. I'm just trying to get things out here. So you can see multiple choice question, and I put in all of my options, and I can even add an other, let them type in other. We don't want to do that to be self-grading, but that's an option. Down here at the bottom, I can require this question. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it required because I want kids to have to answer every question on my test. I don't want them to be able to submit it without answering everything. Now, if there is an answer I don't like, I can click back up on here and correct it, or I can delete these by clicking the X on the right-hand side. Down here at the bottom, there's this little ellipsis, these 3 little dots right here. If I click on those, it gives me another menu. So one of the things that I can do, I'm going to select this, is shuffle the option order. So that means if I have a bunch of kids sitting next to each other in a lab or with their laptops, when they look over at their neighbor, their order right here of these 4 things are going to be different than their neighbors and different than the neighbor next to them. So they can't just look over and go, oh, he chose the 3rd one down or she chose the 3rd one down. I'm going to choose that one too. No, it's going to shuffle those, so it makes it a little harder for kids to cheat. Now, how do I add another question? The new Google Forms, a little different. You can see over here I can add a lot of things, and maybe I should have went over this first, but I can add a question simply by clicking this plus button. And by default, it's going to give me multiple choice. If I select that, I can choose short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, check boxes, drop down, a linear square, a multiple choice grid, date, time. I have all these different options, and you can do some really cool things with Google Forms, and that's something I'll tackle in a video in the future. But remember, for Flubaroo, we really need to stick with short answer or multiple choice. So I can do that. I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this because I found the easiest way if I'm doing a lot of questions that are multiple choice is just by selecting the duplicate button. If I select that, it's going to give me another question. And so I'm actually going to put, what's the best movie of all time? And so here we go. You guys are going to make fun of my movie taste too here probably. Citizen Kane, The Godfather. I'm going to go ahead and say Hoosiers because it's probably true. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in here Office Space. This is a favorite movie of mine. So now I've got another question. I want to add one more. So once again, I can duplicate this. Now you'll notice when I duplicated this question, it kept that it's required. And it's also going to shuffle the option order. Select that. So I'm going to duplicate this. Now I get a third question. And so for the third question, here in Oklahoma anyway, this might be a good question. I'm going to go Sooners or Cowboys. Oop, if I could type. Now, if you live in Oklahoma, you'll know college sports is a big deal. And so you're either an Oklahoma Sooner fan or you're an Oklahoma State Cowboy fan. Let's see, put Cowboys here. And now I'm going to add a third answer for the people who fall into this category. I don't even care. So now I've got 3 questions. And you'll notice above each question when I hover over it or if I have it selected, I get these 6 little dots at the top. It's just so I can drag the order of the questions around. So if I want to reorder something, it's real easy for me to drag these around. Other things that I can insert into my test, I showed you over here how on this menu I can add a question. I can also add a title, which is something that's really easy to add if I want to put a title somewhere in above a set of questions. If I'm breaking this into different sections, they actually have a section tool where I can add different sections. That lets me paginate my test, so from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. So if you have a really long test, you can do that. I can also insert images and videos. So I can insert an image that I have on my computer or from Google Drive, or I can add a YouTube video. So if you wanted to add a video of a book that you just read, as a summary of a book you just read, you could put it in there. You can watch the video, answer the questions. You can insert pictures of a map and answer questions based on the map. So there are a lot of great things I can do. Google Forms is a very flexible and powerful tool, and so it'll do a lot of the things that I want it to do, which is pretty cool. So now I have 3 questions. Okay, so I've kind of built my test, but there are a few things I'm missing. So I'm actually going to go ahead and hit the plus button here, and instead of being multiple choice, I'm going to go short answer, and I'm going to ask for somebody's name because I got to figure out if I'm not requiring a login, I need to know the name of the person who's submitting the test. So I'm going to say name, and that's required. Then I'm going to duplicate this. It's also required, and I'm going to call this one email. Then I'm going to drag these up to the top because that's where it would logically be, right? First thing I'm going to do is put in my name and my email address, and then I'm going to take the test. I'm going to drag this up to the top here. So name, email, you see my 3 questions here. And so now I can preview. If I want to see what this looks like, I can click on the little eyeball up here and preview this test. Preview my form, and you can see OPSRC Flubaroo test and name, and it's got the little asterisks out to the side in red because those are required. Name, email, here are the questions. I can select them and then hit submit. Here's what's really cool about Google Forms too. If I shrink this down, you can see that it's going to work on and you got to see my Spotify right there. But you see it will work on a mobile phone too. So if you squeeze it down onto a phone, this is something that can be used on a mobile device. So it's mobile friendly. So now I have my test, and so you say, okay, I know how to build a Google form, and maybe you've already done this. How do I make this a gradable test, right? A self-grading test. So over here where I'm editing, I went back to this editing tab here, and you see I have responses, and if I click on responses, and you see I'm accepting responses. If you give a test and you want to cut off the time the kids have to take the test, let's say you posted it to your Blackboard or Google Classroom or Moodle or whatever, you can turn off, hey, I'm not accepting responses anymore, or I'm going to turn this back on. Now responses will automatically fill in right here. You'll be able to see them, but in order to grade this test, we need to create a spreadsheet as a destination. So I'm going to create a spreadsheet and create a new spreadsheet, OPSRC Flubaroo test, responses. I'm going to create that. It's going to go ahead and open it up for me. You can see it has all the questions that I'm asking across the top. And then whenever I have people responding, all the answers are going to flow in below here. And so now that that's loaded, I've got that. I'm going to come back over here and look back at my form. So I've got all the pieces I need. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to preview the test or preview your form, and you need to fill it out. So I'm going to put in my name, I'm going to put in my email address, and then I'm going to answer my questions. The best place to eat in Oklahoma City. I'm going to choose Ted's. It's my favorite. What's the best movie of all time? I'm going to say The Godfather. And then Sooners or Cowboys. I'm a Sooner fan. Maybe some of you don't care. So now that I've answered all these here, I'm going to hit submit. And you can see once I hit submit, please turn to page 43 in your book and read the next chapter. There's the message I added. And so I have successfully taken the test. If I close this out and go over here to responses, you'll see that Ben Parker, ben.parker@opsrc.net, and here are my answers. They're all here in the spreadsheet, which is pretty cool. And if I'm here in the editing part of the form, if I click on responses, you can see that it is now showing my responses and graphing them, which is pretty cool. I'm actually going to go through here, and so as a teacher, so let's pause here. As a teacher, now I have a test, and I have provided the key for that test, right? So I would go through and take the test, providing the right answers, so I have that. Now, if I wanted to give this test to my students, typically what I do is in Google Drive, I right-click on my form, and I duplicate it or make a copy here. And I rename it test for first hour algebra, test for second hour algebra. And when I duplicate it, it's already got the answer key, all that fun stuff. I've got all that set, so I don't have to use the same form because if I use the same test for every class, I want to have all the classes and answers in one spreadsheet. And chances are I probably want to break those out to multiple classes. So so I can see them class by class. So now I have this. I'm actually going to go ahead and hit the preview button. And I'm going to answer this a few times. So I'm going to say, my name is Guy Buttersnaps. And I'm just going to put in my own email here. So it's an email that actually works. And I'm going to answer these questions for this kid and hit submit. Okay. And what I'm doing is I'm just filling out the test. I'm going to preview it again, filling it out a couple times so we actually have responses to grade. This is where you would actually have your kids take the test. So I'm going to put in another name here, Indiana Jones. I think I have this guy made in my domain. And then maybe he'll get this one right, and he'll get this one right, but he won't get this one right. And submit. I'm going to go ahead and do one more. I don't want to bore you to death, but I like to have a few responses in here. So I'm going to preview this again, and then I'm going to say, this one is Harry Potter, and his email is, I don't think I have anything for that, so I'll just use my own. Okay, and then I'm going to go through, and once again, I'm going to answer, and we'll answer differently here and here. And so now I'm going to hit submit. And so that test is submitted. If I come back over here to my form now, you see I have 4 responses. You see it's automatically graphing it here, and it's showing me the responses. And you can see how powerful this would be for anything I would do. So if I wanted to do a parent survey, or I wanted to do exit polls or exit quizzes with my students, this is a really powerful way to gather information. And so I have that there. But I'm going to go to my spreadsheet. You can see now it's put all 3 responses, and then mine up here is still there. So what I want to do now, if I want this to be self-grading, I'm going to go to the add-ons up here at the top. Once again, I'm in the spreadsheet with my answers, and how I got there is this is the form I was working on. If I click on responses, and then I click on this spreadsheet right here, or right here you can see I can download all those responses. That's not going to help us grade it, but if you do want to have like a CSV, a local Excel-friendly file, you can do that. But I can click on this little logo right here and view my responses in sheets. And it's going to open this up. So now I see all of my responses in a spreadsheet. So you see it's got mine, which is the key, and then we'll have all the others. Now you don't have to be the first person to answer it, but I always like to do that, because that way whenever I duplicate it, and if I duplicate the response and set the destination, I don't have to take the test over and over again. It's already there. So it helps me give this test or quiz to multiple classes. So if I go to add-ons, if you've not added Flubaroo, first you'll have to go to Get Add-ons, and so add-ons are available here for Google Apps, and there's a bunch of them I can search. One of them is, I'm just going to select this one. Remove duplicates. You can see it gives me a plus free. It doesn't cost anything. Be the same thing with Flubaroo. You'll see it's here. I can hover over that, and I would normally have a plus free. I can add it to my Google Apps. It comes up green for me as managed because I've already added it. So you would add it, and then once you've added it, you can go to Add-ons Flubaroo and click Enable Flubaroo on this worksheet. Flubaroo has been enabled for this sheet, so I can hit OK, which is really great. And so now I'm ready to go. Now if I go back up to the top, I can go to Add-ons, Flubaroo, and grade the assignment. So you can see it tells me it's working, and it brings up a pop-up box. And so it's going to ask me a series of questions. It's just going to kind of guide me through grading my test. So first of all, it says, hey, on these questions, what are all of these questions for? Or what are they? So you can see name and email. It automatically picks that identifies the student. And then below it says normal grading. I can skip grading, or I can grade by hand. And grading by hand is what I would do if I wanted to have a longer essay question or longer response questions on my test, maybe intermingled with things that would be automatically graded. And like I said, in a later video, I'll show you guys how to do that. But for now, we're just going to say normal grading. And then I can choose how many points each question is worth. I'm going to just go ahead and knock this up to 10 points each. And then I'm going to hit continue. And it's going to work on this and come to step 2. Now in step 2, it's going to ask me which one is the answer key. And so those of you saying, hey, how's it going to know which one is the right one? Or how does it know that my response is the right one? I'm going to go ahead and select mine. You can see it says my name here. Okay, I'm going to hit continue. Okay, now that it's going to go through and grade my assignment, you'll notice it automatically creates a new tab down here at the bottom. And it goes through and it grades my assignment. Okay, so it says grading complete. I'm going to close this. You see at the top, it gives me a summary. 30 points possible. The average score was 13.33 points. There were 3 submissions and 2 low-scoring questions. So if I go through here, it shows me every kid. And then it also shows me their total points, their percentage score, and then how many times they submitted. And then whether grade is email shows me each question and what they got, okay? And so you can see here, this kid, he got absolutely nothing right. And then these two got 2 questions right. And you'll see at the top, we had the majority of our students scored poorly on this question, so it marks it with orange background saying this is a low scoring question. So this is really good whenever I give a quiz or a benchmark and I just want to kind of see where my kids are at when we've been covering something. You say, oh, hey, we're not so solid on this objective, or we're not so solid on this concept. This is something I might need to cover again. And so you can see it automatically highlights that for you, which is pretty cool. Now that I'm done, I can go back up to add-ons in Flubaroo, and I can do a few things. One, I can regrade the assignment. So if I graded this and then I had some kids who were absent or were gone, and maybe they took it afterwards, I could regrade it so I can grade theirs. Or I can share the grades. So if I click Share Grades, it's going to bring up another menu for me. And then it says, what's the email address? Well, it's email. Grade sharing method, I can share via email, which is what I'm going to do. I can include the list of questions and scores, so it's going to show them the questions and all that fun stuff and what their score was. And then I can include an answer key if I want to. I'm not going to, but I will. The message here say, great job. And then hit continue. And you see it's now working. And it says 3 grades were successfully shared. And so those were emailed back out to people, and then they can see the grade that they got on that test. And I didn't have to go through and grade all of these individual worksheets or quizzes or benchmarks. And I didn't have to kill a small tree in order to give the quiz. And so, like I said, this is really great. Works on a tablet, works on a phone, on a computer. This makes it really easy for me to just find out where my kids are at and kind of make my workflow more paperless. And so if this is something that interests you, I hope this helped and this was provided some insight. If maybe you have questions, feel free to email me. I think you saw my email address was ben.parker@opsrc.net. And so feel free to email me. You can find me on Twitter at Riley Richter. Be glad to answer questions that you might have. Like I said, in future videos, we'll try to cover some of the hand grading and more advanced features in Flubaroo. So hope this helped. Thanks a lot for taking time to watch this video.